7 or episode 8?
7.
Is it 7?
No, it's 8.
We have so many different episodes that are like...
It's 8. It's 8.
Is it really? Are you sure?
Yes, because Earthbound was 5.
And then we had... That was May, and then we had 6...
Earthbound was March.
I love how we have a video now of us like, wait, which one is this?
So, episode 5 was in May, episode 6 was in June, so this is episode 7 in July.
Okay, why
not? Because it goes with the number of the month. Number 6 was Metroid. Number 6 was Metroid, so number 7 is actually yes. We're good. Okay. Hey, we figured it out. Yay!
Yay! All right, here we go. Fresh track?
No, hang on. What? Oh, good thing that happened because it messed up. We're gonna just go with this. All right, we're good to go.
Now my Chrome's messed up. There we go. Now it woke up.
What?
Nothing. I'm good.
All right.
All right, here we go. Welcome to episode 7 of Retro Rewind. This episode is brought to you by Nintendo Dad Patreon support. If you'd like to support us, head over to Nintendo Dads at patreon.com. On this episode, we're going to discuss our experience playing through Punch-Out and all of its retro goodness. Zach, cue the music.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Retro Rewind. My name is Zach Erickson, and tonight is July 6th, 2016. In the red corner, joining us is Justin Masson from Lethbridge, Alberta. Justin Masson, what's going on, buddy?
I was wondering how far you're going to go into that. Like, weighing in at 345 pounds, Mad Dog Masson. Yeah, I'm doing all right. We're talking some Punch-Out for the NES. So that's a pretty cool game. I'm excited to talk about that today.
Right on. In the blue corner as well, joining us, the vixen of VGTribune.com, Jesse Waldeck. What's going on, buddy?
That's not a term you normally associate with guys.
It literally was the only V word that I could think. I could have said the virgin of VGTribune.com, but I think that was...
Victorious probably works.
Then the whole Nintendo Dads thing would fit for me.
The vexatious vermin. I don't know. I got nothing. No. Anyway, it's right on.
Vermin? Oh, that's even worse.
I don't know what's going on. This is a look into my psyche. The free association.
I don't know if I want to look. It's scary in there.
I don't know. It is scary in there, man. There are things in there you just don't want to know about. Right on. Well, gentlemen, it is another episode of Retro Rewind. This, of course, is the series that we do because of the patrons over at patreon.com/Nintendo Dads. This would not happen without you guys. So, as we want to say, you are the best patrons. You guys are awesome.
The Patreon folks literally vote every single month and tell us what game that we play, and they play along with us. Like I love that aspect of this, and. You know, the vote came out in June that we needed to play Punch-Out for the NES, and that's the thing I love about the Retro Rewind series. I don't know about you guys, like just taking a pause here. I love that about the Retro Rewind series because I'm exploring games that I never really played as a kid, right? Like I knew of their existence, I know of them tangentially in the Nintendo universe, but never. Don't laugh at the way I said that. I see you smiling.
You stumbled over that like crazy.
I know, and I kept walking through it though.
That's okay.
He tripped over that tangent.
Yeah,
really
but I really love that this is a game they chose because I think this is definitely one I would not have normally went to. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I would not have thrown down my coin for this, but we did.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I love it. It's we kind of actually are trying a new thing, by the way, patrons and everybody, listeners, for how we approach Retro Rewind. We want to make sure that this is something that's really the best we can make it. So we've kind of broken it up into some sections. Let us know if you like the new format. I don't have any bumpers for it this month, but if this is something that you guys actually do like, then we can actually formalize it and get some bumpers and all that jazz. So I'm excited to try this out tonight. So let's jump right into our first little segment here, which we're kind of, Retro Rewind's in beta again is almost what it feels like, but what we're calling retro experiences. So
2.0.
So this
Retro Rewind 2.0 is in beta.
There you go. 2.0 beta. It's so what we're calling retro experiences. So this is, of course, let's go around the table What were your experiences with Punch Out, if any, before before this retro rewind? Whether that is like before, when it was actually first released, as well as even just beforehand. What was your experience with Punch Out, the game on NES, and just as a franchise? Justin, what about you? What was your experience with Punch Out going into this?
Yeah, I think going into this, I knew of the game. Like I know of Little Mac, and I think especially over the last several years has gained popularity through Smash Brothers. Right, we saw Nintendo do a big push for it when he was in Smash Brothers, and there's some characters in there that you recognize very easily. Right, Glass Joe, King
Hippo.
King Hippo, right? These are some recognizable characters. But as it relates to like the NES game, I don't ever remember playing the NES game. If I ever did, I probably might have been over at a friend's place giving it a shot, But what I do remember though from the series perspective is I do distinctly remember like having a sleepover a couple times at like a friend's house, and he had Super Punch Out for the Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a game that we played quite consistently. And that was like a night of like passing the paddle back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? To see what would happen. So I think that's where I really remember Punch Out. Punch Out is very much a rhythm game, right? I mean, it's essentially what I
was going to say, yeah.
It's a rhythm game. It's pattern based, which for me, just kind of the way, I've talked about the games I like before. And of course, you can make the argument, well, every game is pattern based and rhythm based. Yes, right. But this is not a game that I would normally have like gone out actively and seeked. I'm more of a 2D platformer kind of person. So this one wasn't really quite in my wheelhouse of normally purchasing or asking for Christmas. But that was kind of my exposure to it. And again, it's something that I almost kind of put in the same camp as I put Kid Icarus. As it's kind of like out on the fringe of the Nintendo world. Like it's there. They don't really they own it. It's their franchise. They don't pay its due diligence and love to it as much as they should, but every once in a while they kind of pull those strings to bring you back into it. So I think that's definitely kind of the way I see it. I see it more of as a C or even D rated Nintendo game that's kind of really stuck around on that franchise. Sorry, on the console. So
like a C level sort of franchise for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, it's out there, right? And I don't really know if it's polite to call anything a D level franchise, but just kind of the way how they foster and how they love it. Now we have seen in the past that they had Punch Out came out on the Wii, as I recall. Yeah, right. That came out, but like not a lot of love and support, and really there's not been a lot of changes formulaically to the actual game, right? It's still pretty much the same game.
Even the patterns in that Wii version are very similar.
Yeah.
At least early on. They do get more weirder out later on, but the very early games, the patterns are almost identical.
Yeah. And like the characters get up-resed and scaled and look nice, right? And I mean, I think it's even
gorgeous.
Yeah, and I even think like as I recall, like this month, it's one of the games that you can get on the My Nintendo rewards, right? So they do recognize it exists. But yeah, that's kind of I don't know. I'm rambling now, but that's kind of my impressions. It's also interesting, like how many of these things you just kind of like as you're playing it through my retro experience. Again, not having a lot of experience with it, but just kind of like I just know, right? Like I know that Glass Joe is your first person. I know that kind of like bob to the left, punch to the right, kind of movement and patterns. So yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting to come back to it.
Right on. Jesse, what about you, man? What were your experiences growing up with this game and when it first came out and such?
So I first got my NES when I think I was in about 8th grade. So like in the, so 1988, 1987. So
Man, you're old.
I was gonna say.
Well, the point is,
it's like a staple of the retro rewind. Is man, I was 2 years old when that came out.
So several years into the NES life cycle. So at this time, we weren't early adopters to consoles, but I had also grown up. I still had grown up with like Intellivision and Atari 2600. So when we first got the NES, we're looking, a huge visual update over what Atari can do. And I think this was probably one of my first, say, 5 games. I remember
Wow.
picking up. Yeah, this is one of my first NES games that I got, and even at that age, I had a rough understanding of what pixel art was, what sprites were, how they interacted. Even if you how like Mario, it's the Mario from Super Mario Brothers, even its small version is still made up of like 4 individual sprites glued together, and then Super Mario is 8 sprites. So I knew all this with because I was I've been studying doing computer programming stuff since I was like 10, since like
Right.
4th or 5th grade. So the thing that caught my eye with Punch Out was just how large these characters were on an NES. That amazed me.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Mm-hmm. At the time, was that a big deal? Like, was that
I don't
like?
know if it was a big deal for other people, but I noticed it.
Because that is one thing, like as far as like actual sprite size, you're right. Like that's something I hadn't really thought of, but
these
looking at like Mario or whatever, even Little Mac really is like he's little in the game compared to everybody else, but he's actually like a fairly large sprite if you were to actually look at him.
So so in terms of sprite size, he'd probably made up of 12 to 16 sprites. Bald Bull's probably made up of 40 individual sprites, and yet smoothly animated, as smoothly as you can for NES. We're still talking 5 frames of animation for a movement, but for NES, that's still kind of amazing.
And at the time, you remember that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I still think it's impressive. It's still, at least for that technology. So that was the thing that kind of caught my eye, which is why I picked up the game. And I remember, this was the era of, this is even before Nintendo Power, and that's something I'll bring up later. When I did my playthrough earlier today, I laughed at it, and
okay. Are you talking about the same thing? You're probably talking about the same thing as me, where it actually took me the treehouse. This is probably like pre-treehouse days, but like the treehouse, like it seemed like meme injection almost going on in some of the like mid-match commentary from Doc Lewis or whatever. Like, oh man, well we might as well say it now instead of dancing around it. But he basically is like, don't forget to sign up for the Nintendo Fun Club magazine or something like that.
Exactly. And I did subscribe to that. At least back then it was a free magazine that was published quarterly, maybe.
Yeah.
And it did have tips and games, and pretty much everyone who was a subscriber to this got the first Nintendo Power for free, and then after that you had to pay for it.
And that moment felt like I don't know, like a sort of like meme moment that has happened very recently. There's lots of different things where Treehouse will inject memes into their localization of different games. That felt like like 1984's equivalent of that.
Yeah, it's a very self-referential advertising going on.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, so I got to and this was the game. Back then, not a lot of my friends played games, or if they did, we ran in different circles, so I didn't get a chance to talk games with a lot of kids. But this was the one game that, if everyone had a question or a solution to someone else's question, oh, how do you get past Bald Bull? Oh, when he does this, you do this, and then it takes a while to get because you're doing this in the classroom or in the schoolyard, so you have to remember what he said and then try it when you get home. So it takes a while to actually get good at this game.
Yeah, there was no YouTube, which is exactly what I did.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no internet at the time. Yeah, there was. Even in the 90s, we're going to talk about the next game. There was Usenet News groups that had facts on how to 100% a game. Yeah, but this is 1986, 1987 here. They didn't have that. At least if they did, I didn't have access to it. So everything's word of mouth or relying on magazines to learn. And I did eventually get to the point where I could beat Mike Tyson. So I used to be able to play the game through front to back. Then when when they did the remake with Mr. Dream.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got to him, but I never beat him. I don't remember if he has different logic or it's just the same logic as Mike Tyson and just with different art. And that was, pretty much. I think I've played every Punch-Out game since, but I've never gotten very far. At least I got to maybe halfway point, and that's when I would normally fizzle out. Just because I don't have the time and patience as I did back when I only had 5 games at my disposal.
Yeah, totally.
Which is probably the biggest key there. Now that I've got 500 games to choose from, I'm not going to, fight with a game for that, and when I can just go on and play a different game.
Seriously, and as for me, like I actually don't even like I'm sure I saw Punch-Out around, right? Like, but I didn't really have any experience with it at all until fairly recently. Like probably when the Wii. Like when the Wii one came out, I saw it, but I think the actual first time I ever played Punch-Out was when they released it on the Wii U Virtual Console for 30 cents. And I think it was one of the first ones that I got, and I started playing it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Why have I never played this before?" And we might as well just dive straight into, I think that's probably a good transition for just into our impressions from our most recent playthrough. But I honestly feel like, Justin, you said earlier, this is like a rhythm game. I've just recently have been playing a whole lot of that new Rhythm Heaven game, and it's got kind of the same, obviously the feel is a whole lot different. This is a boxing game and things like that, but I can see the roots, right? You can kind of see the initial sort of, this is like a very early rhythm game where it's not just that you've got to learn the patterns, but it's got to be very precise. And, even as you're kind of doing the left, right sort of punching, or if it's left, right, or whatever you end up doing, you've got to be really fast. Like, especially, I was playing against King Hippo today, and he kind of does the weird thing where his face goes, right, and his mouth opens. That's when you got to punch him in the face and then kind of go to town on his belly. And
I like that sound you made.
That should be our new bumper. Blit.
And he, and it's so fast that they even, like, I think the farthest I got
See, what
was...
There's a lot of tells, and then there's a lot of pre-tells. And
some of those later on are really fast too.
Yeah, later on they stop with the pre-tells, but at least in the King Hippo part, you kind of see him kind of shaking. That's when you know he's going to go. Bah!
And yeah, exactly. And you punch him square in the face and then go to town on his belly,
yeah.
Which I think is just like the funniest. There's so many things like that in this game that are just so silly but really fun, and I love it for that. It's just such a great game. And this is a game that I actually like. Sometimes when we do Retro Rewind, I'm like, all right, I've done my duty to the patrons. Like, this was not for me, but I'm definitely going to be going back to this. Like, in fact, one of the My Nintendo things for this month is Super Punch-Out. I'm tempted. I've never played that one before. I'm tempted to play that one because that looks like a whole lot of fun too. So I might go back and do that. So
I think I bought that on Wii Virtual Console, so I can either go back to that or buy the Wii U version for $1.50.
How does that one compare to the regular Punch-Out?
It's a different, more or less it's the same game, but the biggest difference is there's no block. There's an actual duck.
Oh, really? Okay.
So that it takes a while to get used to that and the timing in that and when you have to use it.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just really funny to me. The character designs too is just something that I just love the character design in this game, where yes, it is absolutely like, playing on the most ridiculous, like over the top stereotypes for every single race, like Piston Honda, who's like the Japanese guy, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
And he's just like,
I'm going to TKO from Tokyo.
And he's like the eyebrows, man. The eyebrows on this on Piston Honda are just incredible. Just
I think Zach is jealous.
and like Great Tiger is, you know, just the magic guy with the tiger around him or something. I don't know. That's like in his corner. Just so many things that are just so ridiculous and over the top. And this is actually one of those. Again, like I said, it's one of those games that I'm sad that I missed out on until now, but I'm also able to just kind of come to it with fresh eyes and like experience this game in a way that I'm just really excited. It really holds up, I guess, is my point with Punch-Out. So, Justin, what about you, man? How was your playthrough? How do you feel about Punch-Out now that we've kind of spent the last month playing it?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned earlier that it would probably not have kind of been in my bag of play and part of my jam, but I really enjoyed it. And again, I think one of the things that I enjoy about it is kind of that, especially with the new 3DS, the virtual save spots.
Oh, I don't know that before that. Like that's one thing is like you would have had to play the same character like the early over and over again, right? In order to be
right.
I didn't even think of using the save states, and I probably should have, but because if you lose, you go back a rank, so you have to refight someone you've already beaten once.
Yeah,
right.
so I didn't care much for that. So I kind of like as soon as I got to the next level, I did like the virtual kind of like the save point. So I thought that was really good for me. So it was also like if I'm going and again this goes back to that patterning, right? Like if I'm going through a match and I'm realizing I'm off pattern and I'm just I'm not getting the rhythm I need, I will just hit like restore, resume, and start again like from fresh, right? I'm not going to wait for you to beat the hell out of me and then just start again. So I think for me that was kind of a really great thing. I love the kind of again so kind of being able to take it with it wherever you want, right? You can sit there and play it for either an hour, or you can play it for 10 to 15 minutes and just be fine with it. I was playing it a little bit in the pre-show actually just before we started. So I love that part about it. I also kind of like the once you discover the move set, right? The way to beat them, it kind of feels like you've got the unlock code, right? Like it's this problem that you're trying to solve, and I kind of love that part of it. The tells I thought were funny. Again, the characters to your point are over the top. The thing that really stood out for me actually was I felt how much the graphics actually stood up or stood out.
Yep.
Like it definitely like feels like yes, it's an NES game, but like these are good graphics for an NES game that I think really does stand the test of time. I also rather enjoyed like just some of the fine details, like the fight card just beforehand, like round 1, it says like here's the weight, here's the fight, here's a little bit of smack talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just the kind of attention to detail I thought was really quite fun in those type of things. Yeah, no, I thought it was very cool actually. I really did enjoy it. Yeah, so but I agree with kind of your point, like the stereotypes, a little bit over the top.
A little bit over the top, but it's
a lot of it.
But a lot at the same time though, it's not like I don't know. There's a difference between being racial and being racist. You know what I mean? Like you're playing on those stereotypes and but it's not like it's just having fun with those instead of
it's not doing it in a demeaning way. It's being
exactly,
playful with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Is that it's very much just fun,
Yeah.
Cool. Right on. What about you, Jesse? What were your impressions as kind of with this playthrough in particular? Yeah, well, anything stand out to you?
My playthrough this month literally was one sitting, and that was this afternoon. So I'm like, I need to play this game, which I also bought it for the 30 cents like you did, and I played it up to a point and stopped. And this playthrough, I actually got past that mark. I got
nice.
I think I got one fighter past it, and I did a playthrough. So I called it a dry playthrough because I haven't played the game in probably 2 years, and so again, since I played the game so much as a kid, the early game is a lot of muscle memory, but the later game, I don't remember anything. So I think the video ended up being like 40-45 minutes. So it's out there on my channel on YouTube. I had a headset on, so I was doing self commentary, poking fun at a lot of the things, laughing at the Nintendo Fun Club. I ended up getting to Soda Popinski, which is the second fighter in the third set.
Okay. Wow. So you are considerably better at this game than I am.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of muscle memory going on.
You got a lot of muscle memory. It took me a long time to figure out how to get past like what's even like the I don't think I beat the major circuit, but it was like it's hard.
Yeah,
it's,
I actually
it's
had,
fun, like it's fun to like play that and like, okay, well, what's he doing? Okay, now can I do this? And there's a lot of trial and error there too, right? Where it's like, again, eventually with King Hippo, I was like, all right, what the crap am I supposed to do? And then just punch him in the face and then but on his belly, right?
Yeah, my first loss was to Bald Bull, which is the champion of the second circuit. So I had to go back down and do Tiger again to get the Bald Bull, and I beat him the second time. And then when I got at the start of the third circuit is Piston Honda again, a souped up version, and I lost to him. But since he's the bottom of the circuit, I didn't have to go backwards any, and I could just rematch Piston Honda. I beat him the second time, and then I lost once to Soda Popinski and got a game over, which I completely forgot exists.
Yeah. you know the funny thing that I had a real difficult time with, and I don't know if it's just the layout of the console with the 3DS, is using the star punch.
What is the star punch? Like, how do you? I would just randomly get it sometimes, and
it's like the start button, right?
Yeah,
at least on 3DS.
Start button or the plus button activates it, which depending on on the system is kind of awkward to reach. You compared to the NES, which is more of a natural motion. It does an uppercut, which is a more powerful attack than your regular punch.
Yeah, so you can get the star, and then if you get hit after you get the star, you lose the star. So you have a very narrow window.
Right.
And usually, what I find is I'm like, okay, I'm lining them up for the perfect shot. They're pulling the uppercut, and I'm ducking. I'm ducking in perfectly, but I'm becoming so concentrated that I have to hit that start button that I'll look away for a second, or I'll slip, lose my concentration. I'll get punched, then I'll lose the ability to do that star punch. So
because the start on the 3DS is in a lousy position, just like on the gamepad. So that's why I played it on using the Pro Controller.
Sure.
Because at least the plus button there is more natural to me.
Can you remap the controls at all on either the Wii U or the 3DS and the NES emulator? Or is that just on the N64 ones? I think
you can, but I don't know if you can map start. I've never actually dug into that function.
Yeah. Because that would be nice if you could map start to X or something, right?
Yeah.
That was closer, but yeah, no, I see what you're saying for sure.
Yeah.
See, because I was just playing it and I was like, oh, I must have done good because I punched him and a little star showed up, and that was it. I never actually realized you could push start and unleash that somehow. So. Yeah.
The other thing I really enjoy is the heart meter, right? The getting tired. Right, because I find I can get myself in a rhythm of you move, I punch, and you're getting this perfect rhythm. You're I can just wear him down, and all of a sudden you're oh, I'm tired. And when you're tired, you're moving even slower, right? You've got that that kind of purple haze about you, and I kind of love the impact of that. So that even changes your timing of kind of stepping away from punches. So I thought that was a very cool feature.
Yeah, you lose a heart if you punch and they block, and you lose more hearts if you get hit. So even if you're on the offensive, if they block, that can get you into the purple if you're not careful.
Well, and it just early on, I was kind of okay, well this is the strategy, and my strategy would just be to get through it, and okay, I'll take a hit, and then I'll be able to do this thing. It's no, you can't do that. You've got to actually have really good rhythm and timing with that in order to avoid attacks or to block them or whatever. So. Yeah, it's super interesting. Some of those ones I still I beat him, but I actually didn't deal with what he was doing. So if I come up against this character later, I'm going to be hosed.
I don't remember all the secrets like I used to, but I think with Kaiser and with Tiger, I used to be able to rack up 10 stars.
Oh wow!
If you just do everything just right, but I don't remember what the pattern was. I tried. If you watch my video, you see me messing up. That's me trying to figure out how I got those stars.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I mean, we can get into our next thing here as far as kind of a history lesson. One of the first things I'm noticing here is I'm actually on punchout.wikia.com, which who knew that was a thing? There's a Punch-Out wiki, but apparently In the 1980 version, in the arcade, there was a character, Jesse, you referred to Soda Popinski. In the arcade, he was known as Vodka Drunkinski.
Yeah, and they wanted to localize that for the home audience.
He needed a little bit of a rebrand, I think.
Bear Hugger is the one I was talking about earlier and beforehand. That he also got his start in the arcade and doesn't appear in the NES game, but does show up in the Super Nintendo.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's cool because just as far again, a lot of this history lesson is coming from our video from Cass Lush over at Nintendo Nuggets Gaming Docs on YouTube. He does these awesome little videos for us every month, and you can check out our YouTube channel. Hopefully that should be up around the time that this episode goes live. But so essentially in the Punch-Out was, of course, an arcade game first, and in 1983 in Japan and 1984 in North America and Europe. Nintendo's R&D 1 team were the lead developers on the game, and Genyo Takeda was the lead developer. And interestingly, Miyamoto designed the game's characters, and Koji Kondo was the game's producer, which I thought was kind of cool. One of the interesting things about Punch-Out initially was that the arcade game has actually 2 monitors on it, which at the time I think was fairly. It's just kind of a weird thing. If you've seen it, the top screen actually has like the matchup, right, with like the poster. If you've played the Smash Brothers game and you see the sort of matchup in the background, right, with the different characters on it or whatever, and it's like. It shows the matchup. That's very much what the Punch-Out arcade cabinet looked like. The top screen was just that.
The dual screen did make it stand out in the arcade, and I remember playing it as a kid before NES was a thing. But I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
And even today, playing it today, like on arcade emulators, I think I can only get to maybe the third fighter.
Right. And it's interesting because it was one of the reason that they had that was because they had ordered way too many monitors, and so they ended up just basically creating this game that they could use all the monitors with, or use the monitors in, and so they had all these games with 2 monitors each, which was crazy. But again, it made it stand out in the arcades, which is pretty cool. So. Basically, so there was Punch-Out, and there was also Super Punch-Out in the arcade, and then eventually they turned towards the NES and the Famicom, which later on it ended up. So the R&D 3 team was the one that ended up developing the NES version of the game, and they, of course, if you've actually seen the graphics from the arcade version and then compare the NES version, the arcade version actually has quite a bit better graphics. Early on, because the NES was a consumer level sort of device and it was a little bit weaker, I guess is the right word, right? Sure.
Yeah, the arcade had more power, and your boxer, what not? I don't think it's Little Mac. I think it's something else in the arcade. Is a wireframe thing, so you can see through it and to actually see your opponent. So that of course also helps with less processing requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So they can concentrate on the gameplay and drawing your opponent.
Exactly, but in the NES one, basically they decided, well, let's not do that. I think part of it was just the size of the sprites too. They basically said, we're not going to do the wireframe thing. It may have been a hardware thing as well, a hardware limitation for the wireframe. But instead they said, we're just gonna make a small boxer. And so Little Mac was little, right? And he was this tiny little guy, especially compared to his opponents.
When they announced Little Mac for Smash, when they announced that one of his alt colors was a wireframe mode, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I don't think most people even realize that this was an arcade.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly, right? And it's very cool. And so him being little, another big part of the reason why he was the wireframe in the arcades was so that you could see your opponent behind them, right?
Yeah,
you could kind of
he wasn't little. He was a similar size as the opponents.
Right, and you could just see the opponent through your own character, and whereas the boxer Little Mac was smaller, so you could still see them past him, and there was the size difference allowed you to see your opponent. So that was released in September 1987. It's interesting. He said Punch-Out was first released in Japan for the Famicom as a prize gold cartridge for a golf tournament in September 1987, which was pretty hilarious, I thought. And the original one had the final boss being, what is it, Super Macho Man, but as it was being localized, that was around the heyday of Mike Tyson, and so Mike Tyson ended up being the title sort of headliner of the game. And it released right around the time that he became the World Heavyweight Champion in November of 1986, which was kind of crazy. So later on, in about 1990, they replaced Mike Tyson with Mr. Dream in the sort of re-release or the remake, which was kind of crazy too. So those are a few of the things. Of course, since then we've had Super Punch-Out, we've had Punch-Out for the Wii. And it's been, I feel like it's a game that has been kind of, it has, in the past, it has been very much like a forgotten sort of title, but I feel like lately it's been getting its due a little bit more. And which leads me to our final sort of thing before we get into our listener interaction stuff is, what do you guys think the future of this franchise could be? Like if you had to speculate or dream future franchise, what would Punch-Out look like in the future? Where would you like to see this franchise taken if you were to go there? What do you think, Justin? Where would the future direction? Where would you like to see Punch-Out go?
I'd like to see more. I almost want to use like leveling up and stat ways of doing
like
it,
RPG
right?
elements.
Yeah,
kinda?
in some ways, right? So you've got to really grind out your cardio. You really got to grind out your strength. You've really got to grind out your kind of agility, right? Your ability to bob, and then like boxing intelligence or something, right? Like, so it's kind of a little bit more RPG elements to it. I don't know if it's going to be a great game, but
I like that though, because it's kind of almost like a sports simulator, almost like I played growing up, like NHL 95 or whatever, right?
Sure.
Like I don't play a lot of the current sports games, but are you thinking
sports ball,
like sports ball? the idea of like a campaign mode with those sorts of like leveling up, management type stuff. That's interesting. I like that idea.
Yeah, I think those are kind of the ways that I would see it. You know, I mean, like I've always kind of felt like the story feels a little bit thin. Like, go get belt, right? Like that's the kind of the objective, right? Like, but then again, like what am I looking for a story? That should be kind of its objective, right? So, yeah, and I mean, even you could have like, you know, you start off with like a really cheap kind of, you know, jacket or boxing shorts and gloves or whatever, and you have to earn those things. And I think a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more work, you know, towards your goal, and you know, there's probably even like a nutrition component of it as well or something. I don't know. I think there's a lot of well, I mean, they just kind of like, you know, your reward and before your match you have to eat something, right, or whatever, to kind of bring up your levels, and you have, you know, some choices of food you eat or something. I don't know. It's just, you know, I'm just thinking.
It's funny you mentioned that, because the Doc Lewis, especially on the Wii version of the game, is like not very rarely shown without a bar of chocolate in his hand.
Nice.
Nice. Which, by the way, we should mention that too. Wasn't that a My Nintendo thing, Doc Lewis's Punch-Out, where you basically just fight Doc Lewis?
Yeah,
that was.
I think I actually got that, and I played it once, and he cleaned me, and I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. I never got that, but
It was like one of like the cheap, like 80-point awards or something like that. It wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot.
Yeah, it was a.
It ranks up there with the that extended hand game. I actually got that game from Club Nintendo as well. I forget what that's called, but you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
What about you, Jesse? What do you think we could add to the like, if you were to see a new Punch-Out game, what would you like to see from it?
kind of a half joke answer is VR.
Well, I mean,
A little force feedback in the helmet that when you get hit in the head, you actually feel a little bit. Boom.
no, I think they did actually. Well, like they didn't do this, but didn't they add some sort of motion controls to the Wii version? I actually haven't played a ton of the Wii.
Yeah, I think even with
Like,
balance board support, which was horrible.
Okay, so was it like shifting your weight with the balance board and then like
you
the
shift
box
and then you
with-
actually use the remote and nunchuck, and I think I played it once. I'm like, okay, this isn't going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But so okay, so that's your joke answer. Can you think of it?
I'd actually like to see this kind of arcaded up again.
Mm.
You know, with what they know now. You know, with from the whole history of the franchise, I think that would be interesting to see what they can do with another arcade machine.
That would be very cool. I like that idea. That would be sweet. I wonder. I like your idea, Justin, of the RPG type thing, right? Where there's a little bit of a campaign, and it feels like they're almost there anyways. With the just progression system that even in the NES game exists. And I like that idea of just adding some RPG elements to it. Maybe even just adding a campaign mode where Little Mac is part of the tournament or the championship or the league or whatever, and you kind of create your own guy there. Oh, what's going on? You still hear me?
Yeah, I still hear you. Yep.
Okay, I don't know what that was all about. Don't you dare die. Hang on. I'm going to pause. Shiz unhandled exception. What's going on?
Uh-oh.
Oh! Shizbot.
Not Audacity, is it?
No, it's like... I kid you not. This is probably... Are we streaming this?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh, you're going to need this audio?
We might. Hang on. Can I save this somehow? What's it doing? One sec. I don't know what's going on. What's it doing? Stop. And Google Chrome, maybe? Sorry, dudes. Come on.
No worries.
Piece of what system and compressed memory. What? Close that and boo. Well, I think what we're going to do is continue on and then you save the audio. Okay. So anyways, yeah, I think what we've got, I don't have access to the notes or anything anymore, but do you guys have any other thoughts as we kind of wrap up this before we head into the fan stuff?
Well,
No, I think it's good.
one thing that I looked up, did a little research on, because I remember the password system in the game. And that's mainly the reason why I stopped playing when I did, because I got the game over and I didn't write down any passwords. Well, yes, I was recording it and I could have looked back, but I was happy with my progress at the time. But had I written down the password, I probably would have tried one more time. But other games in the NES had passwords as well. Kid Icarus, Metroid. And
right.
And the reason why they had that in North America is because in Japan they were on the Famicom disk system, so they can actually save the progress on the disk.
Okay.
And so I was wondering, I wonder if Punch-Out was also a disk system game or not. It wasn't, so apparently they also kept a similar password system. But I just thought that it was weird that sometimes they used passwords and sometimes they didn't when they had the disk system available to them.
Interesting.
And then
Very cool.
Legend of Zelda also being a disk system game, which was the first game in North America that actually had a battery to save your state.
Right. Yeah, it was interesting back then, all those weird things that they do to make it work properly, and like with this one with the password and so on, like you were saying.
With the battery in the cart to maintain the memory, because they didn't have flash memory back then. So
yeah.
It had to have it maintained power, or else it'd go away.
Yeah. Yeah. Craziness. Right on. Well, finally, we've got at the end of our episode here, we've got some fan interaction, of course. To all of you listeners, of course, a big part of Retro Rewind is the community getting involved and playing along and all those sorts of things. So if you are doing that with us, absolutely let us know, is this something that you're enjoying, and let us know what your experience has been with that. And we will, we're gonna read your business on the show. So absolutely let us know what your experiences have been. We have some people who did that, Justin.
We do.
Shout! What are the masses saying, good sir?
Mikey Burgett says, I grew up on Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Could never beat it, but it was fun. And then Malik reads, I love this series. My favorite of all Nintendo series. It was my first Nintendo game I played as a young boy many years ago. I'm 37 years old. So just some kind of interactions, obviously from both Malik and Mikey, kind of talking about how they really were drawn to the series and the interactions as well.
Yeah, and I feel like this is like one of those series that a lot of people don't have a lot of experience with this, I feel. Or at least that's my impression, is that a lot of people, it's not one that a lot of people talk about, but it's one that once you play it, it's like, oh no, man, this is good stuff. Like this is classic NES, goodness at its best. So, yeah, right on. So, Justin, I actually am literally looking at like a blank screen right now, so I don't have any my old stuff. Do we have anything else at the end of the show here, or
that's it for the end of the show, other than a couple things, some very, very important things. First and foremost, as Zach had mentioned, thank you very much for Patreon supporters. Again, these are games that you guys are selecting for us to play. Thank you for sharing these with us, because we think these are amazing. And much like Mikey and much like Malik, thank you for sharing your stories with us. We love hearing how and why these games were selected by you and how they connect with you. So that's really important. Speaking of games that are important and connect with us, next month, Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo has been the fan-selected, Patreon-selected, as a matter of fact, game for us to be playing. So if you haven't, head over to the eShop right now. This is available on the 3DS eShop. I don't know if it's available on the Wii U, to make sure you pick it up. So that is a classic game. We're going to be excited to play that as well. But those are kind of the major points that we've got to hit up. Also, if you are a Patreon supporter, in the Patreon chat very soon, you will have the video from our good friend Cass Lush from Gaming Docs, and the exclusive monthly print from Adam Leonard. And this month, obviously, it was Punch-Out, and it is a sweet image he did for us. So we're going to put that in there as well. Again, just part of the reward for being a Patreon supporter. So thank you guys very much. Zach, anything else you got?
No, I think that about does it. So I'm going to wrap this up as well. Of course, if you guys want to follow us on all the social medias, you can do so: Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Nintendo Dads. If you want to email us, nintendodads@gmail.com. All this month, send us your emails for, how is Donkey Kong Country doing? How is it treating you? How is Cranky Kong? A miserable old grouch? Something, I don't know. nintendodads@gmail.com is the email address to do that. If you want to call and leave us a voicemail, you can do that. That's 929-25-NDADS, 929-256-3237. Head over to YouTube and Twitch and find us every Wednesday night, recording live for you people over at youtube.com/c/NintendoDads/live. Big thanks to OC Remix for our music throughout the show, as well as to Carter Johnson and Adam Leonard for our amazing artwork. And, of course, if you want to change the world, by all means, go over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, and written reviews are even better. And, of course, this episode was brought to you by all of our patrons over at patreon.com/NintendoDads. So head over there, and you guys are amazing. We will see you all in our regularly scheduled episode next week. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. All right. I literally can't do a dang thing.